Hey folks, welcome back. This is Joel, and in this video we will talk about Windows VPN. Okay, so I thought I'll create a new series around network defense, and this is literally going to be the first video in that series. All right, now we have talked about VPN a lot on the channel, right? Site to site, we have talked about remote, we have talked about Cisco ASAs, Firepower, right? We have talked about a bunch of things around VPN on the channel. You can go back and check. But I thought let me do something around Windows as well, because Windows is one of the most used operating system out there, and there are a lot of probably businesses out there which have a bunch of domain controllers, right? And you have a bunch of workstations, and since everyone is working from home, people will be trying to think of a solution to kind of set up a VPN, right, using their existing infra. So this is a quick way of doing that, right? So if you see the setup here, I just have a simple switch. Think of this as the internet, right? Maybe there is like a bunch of routers, switches, whatnot, right? This is the internet, right? Think of this as the user who is like sitting in the house, right, probably trying to connect to the corporate network. And think of this as the Active Directory, which is like the on-premise Active Directory, which is there in the campus, right, or probably in a data center in the campus, right? And this guy has two IP addresses. One is the public IP address towards the internet, and probably one of the other is the other network adapter, which I have not shown here obviously, but think of that as the private network adapter, right? Think of that as the Ethernet 1, and that is probably connecting to the LAN, right, on the left hand side, right? So basically the use case here is that once we set up the VPN, the user will be able to directly VPN into this network, and then he will have access to this 10.1.1 or basically any other probably servers or whatever are sitting behind this Active Directory. All right, cool. So let's do this. So how do we start? So let's see. So this is my obviously this is going to be my AD, right? Or basically the Windows server, right? I'm using a 2019 Windows server. If you want, I mean, you can set up the Windows server on Eve. It's pretty simple. You can just go through their documentation. You can get the free ISO of Windows, like a trial version from the Windows website, right? You don't have to, you don't really need like a paid version or whatever, right? You can just get the licensed version for education purpose. And then I also have a Windows 10 machine over here, right? The other VM, which is the user, right? The VPN user, which is basically this guy. So the user is nothing but the VPN user. So this is the Windows 10 machine, and this is nothing but the 2019 Windows server, right? So let's start by configuring the server first. So what I have done already, let me show you that, right? So if I go down to my network connections, what do I have? So I have two network connections, Ethernet and Ethernet 2. Ethernet is basically the let me show you what do I have here. Click on properties, let's click on IPv4. There you go. The IP address is 200.0.0.1, right? That's what we have. What do we have on the other side? Let's check that. Okay, the other interface is nothing but I think it is let's see, I think it's 10.1.1.1. this is the private interface, right? Very similar on the other side as well, which is nothing but let me just go down there. So this machine which we have here, what do we have? We can do simply maybe ipconfig, right? There you go. So we have 200.0.0.2, right, which is the public IP. So this guy just has the public IP. Okay, awesome. So let's now that we have said that, we can probably quickly do a ping from this guy and see if the server is reachable, which is 200.0.0.1, right? There you go, right? The server is reachable. Cool. Nothing fancy till now, right? This is all straightforward stuff. So now we are going to set up the VPN service, right? So what do we do? First, we will go to a server manager. Okay. As of now, you see what do we have? We have just the Active Directory which has been set up. So that's something which I have already set up, right? The Active Directory, it's pretty simple. You just need to go and add the role. Let me show you how to do it. You just need to click on add roles, click next, and here you'll have to just select Active Directory domain services, right? And just go ahead with the next, and you would basically end up installing Active Directory. Cool. So once we have done with the Active Directory, the next step is nothing but setting up the remote access VPN, right? So we'll have to add that role as well. So that is what we're going to do now. So I have not done that, so let me do that. So let's go and click on next, again click on next, and here you will basically find a role called remote access, right? This is what we want, this remote access. So let's click on that and let's select next, right? Again, let's go ahead with this, nothing to change here. So it's going to give you three options, right? there are a lot of services of a Windows Server which people don't really explore, right? But there are pretty cool things like, see, there is a web proxy as well, right? But what we are going to do is we're going to go with the first one, which is direct access and VPN. And there are some features needed, so I'm going to add those features. All right, I'm going to go click on next. I'm also going to say, if you want to restart the server, please go ahead, do it while installing. Click yes and install, right? So now the installation process will start. This will go on for probably a couple of minutes. So I'm going to pause the video and come back once it is completely done. All right, so let's do that. All right, so this is the screen which you get once it is completed. So what I can do is probably click on close, right? So because we are done with all the remote access, I believe. So there should be a remote access role. Yeah, there you go, right? So we have the remote access role showing up at the bottom, which is what we want, right? So now let me also show you the Active Directory. So what I'm going to do is click on here. Let's go to admin tools, and you should have Active Directory users and computers. So I'll show you basically what I've done is I have this is basically the stuff which I have done as part of my Active Directory setup, right? So I've just created a new domain here, a new organization unit, right? I basically called it as VPN, and I've put basically one user in it, right? And what is the user? The username is Tom, and I've put a password, right? And I've added that user to this particular group, right? This is basically what, like I said, this is like prep work which I did as part of setting up the Active Directory, right? Pretty simple. It's nothing complicated. You just need to, once you have set up your Active Directory, you can just come down here and say create group, right? This one, and then create a user, and you can make that user as a part of the group, right? So I've done this, right? Because why we want this? Because we want to have some kind of local authentication, right? So when the remote user, which is down here, right, is trying to do a VPN, we need some kind of username password, right? So if it's a very small organization, it doesn't make sense to, let's say it's a small startup, right, with like 3 or 4 people, right? It doesn't make sense to set up one more radius server and do the authentication externally, right? So it's pretty simple to do a local authentication of this sort. All right, so this is what I've done. So this is very important. I thought I'll just mention it because it's one of the important steps, right? So once you're done with once you have kind of added the role, which is the remote access role, and you have also added the user, right, local user, what the next step is, you go down to your tools, right? And let's go to the routing and remote access tool here, and this is what you get, right? This is my local server. Now we'll have to configure this guy. So let's click on configure, right? Click on next, and you have multiple options. You have different you can use basically this server for doing a lot of things, right? You want to do NAT, you can do VPN access and NAT and so on. In my case, I just want to do remote access VPN, so I'm gonna do remote access. Click on next. You have multiple options here. Dial-up is something which people used to do back in the day. I'm just going to go with VPN, right? Click on VPN. Now this is going to ask you for which is the interface you want to use, which is internet facing, right? In my case, which is the internet facing one? It's the Ethernet one, right? Which is with the IP of 200.0.0.1. So I'm going to click next, and it's going to ask what are the IP addresses I would want to assign my users, right, or my clients, right, when they remotely come in. So I'm going to say don't do it via DHCP, rather put a specified range of addresses. So here I'm going to put that specified range. I'm going to go with 10.1.1. Remember my subnet is 10.1.1 for my private network. I'm going to use the same subnet, but the IP addresses I'm going to give from 100 probably, right? So I'm going to do same thing, 10, 1, 1 and 150 probably, right? So these 51 addresses or 51 clients, right, I can basically serve using these addresses. I'm going to select OK. Then click on next, right? So this is going to ask, the very next thing is going to ask, do you want to set up a radius server for authentication? I'm going to say no, use the local authentication, right? And click next, click finish. Okay, so it's going to give this a message saying that you'll have to have DHCP relay agent for if you want to assign IP addresses via DHCP. I'm going to say okay, because we are not using DHCP. Like I said, we are using a pool of VPN pool basically, right, to assign the IPs. Cool. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to say finish. and that's going to take few seconds, right? Yeah, there you go, that's done. We can also look at the properties of this server. So I'm going to click on properties here, and we can probably quickly have a look at the security. You see here you have the drop down. If you are using radius authentication, then you would basically go for this. In our case, let's stick to Windows authentication. You can also, you have an option to select, so we can add a custom IPSEC policy for, you know, L2TP and IKv2 connection, and in that case we'll have to put in a pre-shared key. So I'm going to use a pre-shared key. I'm going to say Cisco123, my evergreen, you know, pre-shared key which I use always. So there you go, Cisco123, and if you want SSL VPN, you can click on here. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep it very basic IPSEC L2TP VPN, right? So we have Cisco123, that's good. I'm going to say apply. To enable these things, you must restart. Okay, that's fine. We'll restart it later. Is there anything else? Maybe IPv4, IPv6. See, this is the properties of your IKv2. You can change if you want to change anything here, right? So we are all good. I'm going to say OK here. And just like, you know, the prompt, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and restart. So you can click on all tasks and you can go and restart. So now it will basically restart the whole process, the whole, you know, the VPN process, because we did some changes just now, right? So that's important. Let's wait for that to finish. Yeah, you can also see the ports which are going to be allow your VPN access in. I think if you pull this on the right hand side, okay, not yet, probably, okay, it's not going to show there. Maybe I'll have to click on properties. Yeah, there you go, right? So it's basically like, for example, we are working with L2TP, so it's going to give us 5 users, right? These are going to be the 5, so it's going to basically allow 5 clients to connect to our VPN service, right? You can increase this to probably, you know, 100, 200 or whatnot, right? I'm not sure about the upper limit, but yeah, you can change this based on the number of users you have. Cool. So that's all done over there. What else do we need to do, right? So we are done with the we have done routing and remote access. Next, let's go back to the tools, and there is one more thing which needs to be done. We need to go to the network policy server, right? So here, this is the place where we are basically going to tell the server that, look, please allow these sessions or these connections to come in, right? We need to kind of allow that explicitly. So we are going to do that. Okay. So let's wait. It's a bit slow. I think I'm using like 8 GB per appliance here on my Eve. If you also want to try this, you probably would need so much, because Windows Server takes a lot of resources. So come down here, click on network policies. We can create a new policy, right? So I think I already have a policy from before, which is allow VPN, but I do wanna, let me just delete this and that I can create a new one, right? These are my older policies which I was playing around. So let's just delete this, guys. So let's create a new policy, right? So like I said, let's go here. I'm gonna say allow VPN, right? And here let's we have to specify the type of network access server. In my case, it is the remote access server, right? So we basically wanna set this guy as the VPN server. So we're gonna select that. Go to next, and this is the place where we need to select the condition, right? So what is the condition? In our case, we want to make sure that the user is Tom, right? So that is the user whom we are going to allow inside. So I'm going to do add, select user groups, add, and here add groups. Let's just put in VPN over here so that we get the VPN users. Yeah, there you go, right? So bits please / VPN users. So that is the organization unit, right? Inside which we have the user whom we want to allow into our network, right? So I'm going to say okay, there you go. So this is the condition, right? Cool. So once we have put in the authentication condition, let's go to the next step. We are basically going to say access granted, right? Or you can do things like access denied and stuff like that, because this is again nothing but we are just configuring the network policy here, right? So you can basically, you can think of this as an access list. You can access, permit, deny, and do stuff. In our case, obviously, since we want the VPN connections to be allowed, we're going to do access granted. Click next. Here you can basically change things like you know, you can change the order, I believe. You can change the various algorithms, which protocols which are going to be used, right? CHAP v2 and stuff like that. You can enable, disable. I'm going to keep all of this default. So this is the idle timeout stuff, right? So we can change this if you want. Like for example, we can say if the server is idle for say 5 minutes, right? Then basically turn the, close the connection, right? If there is no traffic flowing through and the VPN server is idle for 5 minutes, yeah, terminate the connection. Or you can also go to session timeout and you can say every user who comes in, right, if they have connected to the VPN, keep the connection on for say like 60 minutes, right? After 60 minutes, disable the connection, right? You can do that. So all of these are those. So let's go on to the next, right? And yeah, so I think that's majorly it. Do we need to do anything else here? Give me a second, let me check. Yeah, so that's mainly it, right? So we'll click this and we'll close this, which is next, and finish, right? So that's all the configuration needed on our that's all the configuration needed on your on the VPN server. Okay, all right, so let's go and now try to connect to this VPN from the other machine, right? Also one more thing, probably let's do this. So you see the processing order of the policies. Let's actually move this guy to the top, right? So that it doesn't get blocked by the other policies which are here, right? Which are basically deny access. Cool. So that looks good. So what we are going to do is now jump on to my other machine, which is the Windows 10, the user, right, who is going to be connecting. So what do we have here? Let's go to control panel, right? And let's go to network and whatnot, right? So we'll have to go to the network and sharing center. Okay, hope this is visible, right? So once you go there, let's set up a new connection here. So we'll set up a new connection, and in our case we want to connect to a workplace. So I'm going to say click next, and it's asking, do you want to use the internet connection? Yes, I'm going to use that. Right now it's not able to figure out if I really have an internet connection. Actually I don't, because it's just a simulated environment, right? If you see my topology, I really don't have an internet connection. I mean, this is literally my internet. So Ethernet 0 is my internet. So I'm just gonna tell that, right? So I'm gonna say I'll set up the internet later, right? So it's asking me what is the internet address, right, for the VPN. So it's going to be what, 200.00.0.1, right? That is the IP address of my VPN server or the Active Directory, whatever, right? I can change the name here if I want. I can say work VPN probably. Okay, so once done with that, I'm gonna say, if you want you can remember the credentials. I'm gonna not do that. Did I lose something? Okay, there you go. So I'm not gonna remember the credentials. I'm gonna say click. Okay, that's good. So let's go to the adapters now. There you go. So we can see the work VPN come up here, right? So let's do some configurations. Let's click on properties. General looks good. Let's see, options look good. Let's go to security. So under security we have to select what kind of VPN this is. In our case, like I said, we want it to be IPSEC with L2TP. That is what we are doing in this, right? So you'll select that, L2TP with IPSEC. We can also go to the advanced settings, and this is where we need to put in that passphrase which I had configured on the other side, right? So I had put Cisco 123, right, which was the passphrase, like a pre-shared key which we had configured while doing the VPN settings on the other side. So we'll have to use the same one here. So I'm going to say okay for that. And the bottom you can enable which authentication type do you want. So I'm going to click on this one and keep whatever is the default, which is CHAP v2, MS CHAP v2, right? So that looks good. Networking looks good. Okay, networking I don't have IPv6, so I can disable IPv6. I also don't want to do any file printer sharing, so I can disable that. So we can keep this and we can click on OK. Okay, so that's good. So next, what do we do? So let's just double click on this one now. Okay, not okay, double click. So you see you get a pop-up here. Let's click on the work VPN, right? If I want, I think it should open up a or we could probably just go down from here, because I want to show you where you can find that if you don't double click, right? So I think it is let's see, so I think it's network and sharing, right? So you can do network and network and sharing center. Directly go down there. Oh, actually, my bad. One sec. Wait. So it's network and internet. Actually, Give me a sec. Yeah, you can just actually search for probably VPN directly. I think that should work. Yeah, VPN settings. So you can just open that, and yeah, there you go. So this is basically the place where you can find your VPN session, right? So this is the VPN which we just now set up, right? So there you go. You can click on advanced options if you want to do some changes, right? If you want to put in some proxy and so on, you can do that. In our case, let's just go and click on connect. So it's going to ask me for the username, so I'm going to go with Tom, and my password is Cisco123, right? And there you go. There you go. It's connected, guys. So our VPN is connected. So what did we achieve here? We have set up the VPN tunnel between my user and the AD on the other side, or the VPN server on the other side. We can test what IP did we get. Let's check that. So we'll go to my machine, and here let's do ipconfig, and there you go, right? See, our from the pool which we set up earlier, we have received the IP which is 10.1.1.1.1, right? Which means now I will be able to ping the private IP of the Windows server, which is 10.1.1.1, right? There you go. Imagine if you had some kind of a server which is sitting behind behind here, right? In this LAN, right? If you had some kind of a server sitting with the IP address of 10.1.1.2, 1.1.3, all of that will be able to reach, right? You'll be able to reach from the internet, because of this VPN, right? Because the VPN is established between the public IP, right? So you have the VPN sessions terminating on this VPN server, and from there it is letting the traffic into the LAN, which is basically where your servers are going to be sitting, right? Your, say, some development server or whatnot, right? Whatever you're working on will basically be sitting behind here, right? So hope that was useful, guys. I just wanted to quickly give you or show you a way where you can set up a quick VPN in your Windows infra, and something which is going to be useful, especially in the in the pandemic scenario, right? Thanks a lot, guys, for watching, and have a good one. Bye.